Hello all, welcome to week 6. So last week, you guys worked on your own to take some existing material and to rethink it, to mix it, to mash it, to make it new. This process resonates, I think, with a lot of what we've been reading about and hearing about, that creativity often relies on drawing on existing resources, on nodding to those who have come before us, on thinking in new ways about tools, approaches, and ideas already in use. I've posted your Project 5 work in the week 6 folder on D2L. I'd encourage you all to spend some time taking a look at the work of other people from class. I think you'll see such a huge range of creativity, even though you all drew from the same pool of existing resources. This week, we're going to focus specifically on spaces that foster creativity and innovation. Unfortunately, in college, you experience a lot of spaces that are not particularly well designed to foster creativity and innovation. A lot of our classrooms have desks locked in rows, putty-colored walls, horrible lighting, and an inherent focus on the professor, who, based on this room design, should always be at the front of the class lecturing at students. Quite a few of our classrooms look almost no different than classrooms did 100 years ago. Although, admittedly, most classrooms include some instructional technology like a projector or a computer the professor can present from. And in some cases, the chairs are now plastic instead of wood. And thankfully, you can't smoke in classrooms anymore. Sadly, our computer labs also often follow this design model: computers in rows, the focus on the front of the room, and little room to move around or collaborate. Human beings react to the space they're in. Space matters, and it matters pretty profoundly in terms of what happens in that space and how the space does or does not facilitate creativity and innovation. So for this week, we're going to first read a pretty big chunk from a book called Make Space. It's a guidebook for thinking about creative spaces. The first 2/3 of the chunk we're going to read is made up of design templates, guiding principles and considerations for space design. The last few pages we'll read from the book are insights or best practices in space design. Next, we're going to go into some specific creative workspaces. We're going to look into the offices of a handful of ad agencies. We're going to explore some creativity spaces located on colleges and universities across the United States. And then we're going to look at a particularly innovative school model in Australia. After that, you guys are going to watch a TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson, in which he talks about current paradigms in education, which I think provides a really good backdrop for thinking about the spaces in which we learn and we work. Then you guys are going to take a look at 40 workspaces of the famously creative. We're going to veer off for just a moment and look at an outdoor space in New York City, the Highline Park in Chelsea. We're going to read a brief history of the park. We're going to read about the design thinking that informed the park, and we're going to look at a bunch of pictures of the space. Finally, there are 2 creativity sparks for this week. They're both humorous. They're both parody pieces. We're going to first watch a chunk from Portlandia called Bad Art, Good Walls, which is hilarious and begs the question of whether or not people work hard to make some spaces as awful as they are. Then you're going to check out a site called Catalog Living. The people who run this site collect catalogs, Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel, Williams Sonoma. They've created an imaginary family who lives in these catalogs. So we're going to be reading about the life of the imaginary family who live in these spaces. I know, it sounds ridiculous, and it's hilarious. But I think the parody site Catalog Living does a really good job of forcing us to think about what space is supposed to look like and what sorts of lives space constructs. Before I introduce Project 6, I want to talk briefly about a particular creative space on MSU's campus.
CE is both like a place and kind of a concept.
It's designed as an opportunity to give students a chance to work on real-world projects.
It's a student-centered place, it's a production-centered place, and it's a making-centered place.
It was really kind of up to us what we did with the space, and we helped grow it, which was really exciting.
We're constantly being collaborative and critical about the different places that we can be innovative.
They exercise the skills that they learn in their classes on projects that are solving big problems.
It's kind of this idea of working on your own projects and following your passions and just creating things out of things that weren't there before.
I'm currently working on like an MSU East Lansing art walk.
The CATA project, which was a research project to look at the relationship between Lansing and East Lansing.
Not only do I love to cook, I'm very interested in linguistics and language. I was able to combine the two to reinforce students' language skills.
Projects like that were awesome to have like a group of people who are creative and excited and just wanted to work on things all the time.
Studio art students meeting with professional writing students, working with German language students, and coming together around the issues, the challenges, and the questions that we face today from an arts and humanities perspective.
It's this large team of people really working together, kind of choosing their own skill to bring to the table.
The CE is a value added beyond what they're doing in the classroom.
We're not trying to replicate the detailed, professional, bigger spaces that the departments have, but rather we're trying to augment that.
Here we have access to all this like really expensive software and things that like I just can't buy on my own.
Photoshop, Illustrator, Final Cut Pro, cameras.
We also have more like actual hands-on tools, like stuff to build and stuff to make.
So that's everything from having a MakerBot to having buckets of markers and crayons.
If you have any idea anytime, you can either prototype it or talk it out with someone or flesh it out in a way that you couldn't do if you were sitting in a dorm lounge.
This is a place that wants to develop my skills.
And that's open to all of our students, regardless of their major.
This is a very, very inclusive space.
Everybody's creative and everybody has an interesting perspective to bring.
There's things that I never really thought that I could do that I've learned how to do in this space.
It's really about how to use these skills to make a difference in this world.
I always am excited to be approached by someone who wants to know what I'm doing or just wants to know about the space at all. I could talk about this all day long.
One of the things I love the most is when students just walk in and say, hey, what is this? And we have a chance to say, oh, come on in, let's show you. Let's get involved, let's build something together.
So here's a bit of history and backstory for the Creativity Exploratory. On Friday, March 11th, 2011, as you all know, there's an earthquake and tsunami that struck Japan. The next Monday, in a class that I was teaching, a student asked people to stay after class and also asked them to get on Twitter and Facebook and invite other people to come hang out after class because he was planning a fundraiser to support recovery efforts in Japan. About 15 people either stayed after class or showed up in the classroom after my class ended, and within an hour, the group had scheduled bands for a concert, touched base with East Lansing to get permits to host a fundraising concert, and had contacted the American Red Cross for a representative to be at the concert to collect donations. By the next day, they had a logo for the fundraiser. They'd found a local business that donated screen printed t-shirts with the logos on them. They had created signs for the concert and for the fundraiser. 2 days after that, they had their permits from the city of East Lansing. The bands were scheduled to play, and there's an overall schedule for the event, and they started a social media campaign to publicize the fundraiser. I was amazed at how this interdisciplinary group of students, some were freshmen, some were seniors, I think a couple of grad students also pitched in, how they came together and how they were so creative and productive. And I wondered, what kind of space could we build for students like this to come and do this type of co-curricular, experiential, beyond the classroom work? And we built the space that you just saw in the video. It's in the College of Arts and Letters. It's called the Creativity Exploratory. It's in Linton Hall, and it's open to all arts and letters students and all other undergraduate students. And for Project 6, you yourselves will be working in creativity clusters to design a creative and innovative space. 6 readings and materials are going to set you up well to tackle Project 6. For Project 6, you're going to work within a creativity cluster to propose a new creative, innovative learning space for MSU's campus. It needs to be bold, creativity-centered, and innovation-oriented. It has to be by students, for students. It's funded by a $4 million donor gift, and this donor wants to make sure that you design the space and has launched a competition for students to pitch space designs. The student proposal that is the most compelling, creative, and innovative is going to be moved on to the next phase of space development. The deliverable of Project 6, what you're going to produce in your creativity cluster, is a short, standalone slideshow in which you present, explain, and justify your space design suggestions. I'd prefer a PowerPoint, but if your cluster chooses and if you're comfortable, you can use a tool or a space like Prezi to create your presentation. By standalone presentation, I mean that I'm going to be reviewing it. You guys aren't going to formally present your presentation. Instead, I'll be reviewing it on my own. You might have noticed when we worked in MSU Google Apps for Project 4 that you can create a presentation using MSU Google Apps. I've set up a draft MSU Google App presentation for each creativity cluster. Feel free to work collaboratively in there if that space works well for you. Again, otherwise you can use a space that better facilitates your group work if you want. As with Project 4 though, start at the MSU Google app and you must use your MSU Net ID to log in. You can't use your Gmail to access your creativity cluster's work. Before you check out the MSU Google app presentation draft for your cluster, I'd encourage you guys to review carefully the entire Project 6 assignment along with a sample student project that I've posted in the Project 6 folder in the Week 6 folder on D2L. Happy creating!